and welcome to Life Lab. I'm your host, Mai Lei. This is a self-discovery podcast dedicated to inspiring and guiding you toward your most authentic self through personal reflections, real-life experiments, and the stories of both myself and others. We'll explore what it means to grow, evolve, and truly live in alignment. In today's episode, we'll be exploring the question, am I enough? Understanding our inherent worth, nurturing self-compassion, and freeing ourselves from comparison. I'm going to share a story about my own insecurities that led to me questioning myself and the lessons that I've learned about recognizing my own inherent worth as a person. After the story, I'll share a Life Lab exercise to help you separate your identity from circumstances. Before we begin, I'm going to take a nice deep breath to center myself, and I invite you to as well, because we're about to explore a question that is not easy to talk about, to be honest. However, I think it is an important question that many of us struggle with, and I hope that if my story resonates with you, that it helps you in some way and to feel less alone. So for many years, I struggled with low self-esteem, and thinking back to those times is really hard because the more I love myself now, the more I look back at that version of me or the many versions of me that struggled, and I have a lot of heartache for that younger version of me. So it reminds me of how far I've come along, but it also reminds me of the pain that I went through and how real it was. I was a perfectionist throughout school. I wanted to excel and do well, and I wanted to achieve more, and I struggled a lot with negative self-talk, especially if other people were also talking negatively about me. I I took it very hard, and I think it was because I didn't really value my own words and thoughts enough to help me through all the external conversations going on. Having low self-esteem was, in a way, blocking me from connecting with people. It made me very self-conscious. And especially when I was going through high school and college and trying to figure myself out and what to do with my life, the societal pressures were increasing to achieve, going to college and uh, getting married, having kids, buying a house. I would say that's like the American dream, the the thing to go for. A lot of people, especially in my age range, that is what you were shooting for. And I struggled to feel comfortable with doing all that. I I didn't really think for myself too much. For example, I wanted to go to a different college out of state, and I was too scared to take that risk. I didn't know if going to that college was going to be the right move because it was going to be more expensive and it was away from my family. Having the pressure of going to college too is also a lot because there were some people taking gap years and some people not going to college, and I was too scared to even take that risk of doing something different, thinking that I would make a mistake. And all of that tied to my self-worth. I didn't want my mistakes to reflect the value of me. And I remember how difficult that was. And seeing my family, my sisters, be so successful in what they do. They're over a decade older than me, so they were always a stage ahead of me, and I looked up to them so much. They both did a very similar route, and I was very thankful for that at the time because I thought, okay, This is this is uh this is a sign that I need to do it this way, or this would be the best way, because if I went to the same college, tried pursuing careers like them, corporate jobs, and eventually getting married, like this would be the route to go to. A successful one that would make my family proud, one that would make everyone proud of me. When at the end of the day, I really wasn't thinking, what did I want? What did I want to explore? What was I curious about? I was curious about certain things, right? About going to a different college or majoring in something really different. I was already taking a risk by going to school for journalism. It was more of a liberal arts degree than a more technical one that my sisters had done. I already felt like I was rocking the boat with that, but I really didn't give myself the chance to explore my curiosity. So I just did what everyone else is doing. I played it safe. I had a boyfriend at the time, and he was going to the same school that my sisters had went to, so it seemed like the right fit. So I ended up staying, and those societal pressures, especially when you have insecurity, I think that makes it like the easy route to just follow it. Validating my own thoughts and feelings wasn't really practiced. And so that's something that throughout my recent years is something I've been learning to do, to owning my voice and honoring my thoughts and feelings and standing up for myself and validating my own self too. But this insecurity, and questioning, am I enough? Am I enough? It stemmed from having such low self-worth and thinking my productivity is attached to my worth. So if I were to get a successful job, a respectful position, get married and have kids, maybe that would mean that I'm worthy, that I did it. And when I wasn't quite achieving every single thing that I was shooting for, it was really hard not to just give up. It was it was really hard to just keep going. I continued to struggle throughout my high school and early college years up to really my mid 20s. I was going through a lot of pain. I was very depressed. And I went through all that because I had such low self worth. I do have a loving, supporting system in my life, but there were some things that were not healthy that I was just so used to. I learned at a very young age to value other people's opinions more than my own, whether it be praises, the criticisms, you name it. I valued what other people said more than my own words. And it's so interesting because not too long ago, I was watching this Montessori video of this teacher guiding parents and teachers on how to talk to a student or to a child, and saying, if they were to ask you your opinion on their artwork, then you would turn it around and say, what do you think about it? I noticed that you drew this. How does that make you feel? Guide them into honoring their voice and to getting them to talk about what they think about it, because we've been conditioning the children to be looking for validation. Yeah, that's a good job. Or no, that's not a good job. Instead of nurturing them to think for themselves. And I probably would say that a lot of our own troubles in life is probably because we were conditioned to believe certain things, and we just grew up this way. So going back to that, I struggled a lot. I mean, and I didn't handle myself well. I was a really aggressive communicator. I was very angry inside, and I did not know how to regulate my feelings and my emotions, and it hurt so deeply because it was hurting not just what I was doing, but who I was as a person. And I feel sadness now because I recognize that this part of me is a part of my history, and it's not who I am now, but it's like a younger version of me. And I feel sadness sometimes for that younger version of me. And I just want to hold her and tell her it's okay. And then tell her I'm proud of her for not giving up, because some of the experiences that I had were really tough, and it made me want to give up several times. And I'm glad that I didn't. I felt a lot of shame growing up, and I questioned if I was ever going to be enough. And I was in so deep in the depression and anxiety and the frustration and sadness of all the things I was going through that I would listen and hear things like, you are enough, or you can say to yourself, I am enough, but I didn't really feel it. It took a long time, many years, to start really realizing that. And I think part of it is truly honoring your voice, because you can say something over and over again, but you have to actually believe what you're saying and value what you're saying for it to work. After I had broken up with my ex of 9 years, which was not easy at all, I was terrified. I was scared that I was making the wrong decision. I had never been single in my entire adult life, and I didn't know what to do. I was still really insecure at the time, but I knew what I was going through in that situation was not healthy, and it was not right. All this insecurity led me to questioning whether I was enough. All the failures that I had, all the mistakes, because I tied it to my self-worth, I always questioned if I was enough. As I started looking for help, I found this book called The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. I remember reading this in the restaurants or at the cafes when I was by myself, because I had just gotten out of the relationship and I had a lot of time to myself, and I didn't really know what to do just eating by myself. So I would take this book and just take time to just sit with the words and have her words be my company. I'm really grateful for this book because it gave me a lot of insight into myself and to the world around us in ways that I had never really been introduced to before. I like to read a few things from her book as a reminder of why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we will ever do. That is the first part in her book. When I read that, and when I still read it, it reminds me that, yes, I'm owning my story. I'm still remembering the pain and the joy of all of it and loving myself through that process, because denying it, denying what happened to me, or denying the pain that either I experienced or that I caused, isn't brave, and it isn't healthy, and it's not the right thing to do. She talks a lot about compassion and courage and connection with people. Talks about perfectionist as well, which I was and still am to some degree. She also says, yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I'm also brave and worthy of love and belonging. It gave me a lot of hope that what I'm going through is normal and it's okay and that I can survive it and not only survive but thrive. The life that I live now is completely different than what I had just a few years ago. And I would say a lot of it stems from just reading a few of her books but then putting into practice my own thoughts and curiosities of life. I've come to recognize this framework that I'm working on establishing in my coaching business. And it starts with compassion because that's where my story starts, is that I recognize that I needed compassion and to really practice it, hone in on how to have self-compassion and practice it. And once I gave myself those skills and I learned those skills, then I had the chance to honor my curiosity. What was the things I was curious about in life? And in this podcast, I'll share the stories of the journeys that I've gone through, the adventures of skydiving and traveling the world and living in a van and whatnot, and knowing that I was able to act on those curiosities with courage because I also had compassion for myself. I validated my own thoughts and feelings and said, it's okay to have this curiosity. Let's explore it. Let's have the courage to do something about it. And once I did, then I built confidence. And I recognized that this is the framework. This is how confidence is built. And that changed the game for me. And I still, to this day, have to continue practicing that. I have the compassion for myself to then explore my curiosity. I'm not being too hard on myself on what I'm exploring and what I'm curious about. And then I have the courage to act on it. And then once I do it, then I'm giving myself evidence that I can look back on and say that, yes, I have the confidence to do this. I did it. And then once I try more new things I want to look at, and I have to continue the compassion, and that cycle repeats. And that's just how you build more confidence in yourself. And that is what I want to share with you and in my coaching. And it did start with reading her books. So I'm very grateful for her on that. She also talks about cultivating authenticity and talks about shame, talks about even dancing, which I do a lot of dancing. And yeah, it was just a really impactful book for me. As a perfectionist, I knew this chapter was really good for me. This chapter of cultivating self-compassion, letting go of perfectionism, how fitting. I highlighted here in this part about how the belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, we can minimize or avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. It's a shield. Perfectionism is a 20-ton shield that we lug around thinking it will protect us, when in fact the thing that's really preventing us from taking flight. Absolutely. And I've had to work on my perfectionism a lot. And if anything, I feel really good about it because I have done so many things with my life that I never thought I could, from traveling the world by myself to couch surfing in strangers' homes to um, jumping out of planes. I still recognize the tendencies, the perfectionist tendencies, and I work on them especially when it comes to the whole business aspect. And I think that's where, again, compassion comes into play, because I'm very hard on myself, thinking, I've come this far. Why am I still struggling with this? And to be honest, yeah, there are days where I kind of resort back to those feelings and frustration and pain in myself, of like being hard on myself. And it's just, it's okay that it might come back. You just need to have now the skills to bring it back to center. So that's when I come back with the compassion for myself and just be more patient and grace, and show some grace. You can come back with compassion and be kinder to yourself and keep going. Because what I'm being hard on myself is the business, which is very new for me and always been a struggle. And so I'm already hard on myself about that, in some ways. So the whole point is, after some time, when you start healing yourself and you feel like you've come far away, and then you have like a hiccup where you like fall back into some old habits, that's when the compassion is really important, I believe, to keep you grounded and to keep you calm and persevering. Because I think, if anything, sometimes it gets a little bit more frustrating, because it's like, oh, I've come this far. Why is this happening? And that's when the compassion needs to kick back in. So it's never ending. It's never ending. Working on myself and building more compassion helped me also be more empathetic towards other people, because I started recognizing myself in other people. And if I could have the compassion for myself and extend that to others, there's a sense of connecting, like, okay, I understand what you're going through. And I would say a lot more people in recent years, I feel more connected to a lot of strangers than I have ever been before, especially when I'm traveling. And it's really stemming down to practicing self-compassion, being self-aware. Part of her book and part of my healing process has taught me that our self-worth is inherent, meaning that you are worthy just by existing. And I guess at first it was hard to take in, because I was so low in the self-worth. Our worth Once I started realizing that our worth is inherent and that we are worthy just by existing, it really helped me also be more empathetic towards other people and make me see people for themselves as humans, uh, for their mistakes and for their strengths, and seeing them as imperfect human beings, and that it's okay. It gave me the opportunity to also be more compassionate towards other people, because I was just more understanding. And so that's my story. And it's not everything, and it's not quite all the details. I may get into more depth about some parts on a different episode, but that's the general idea. Even people who meet me today, my best friend who met me after my transformation, they don't know this life that I lived before. When I would tell them about my social anxiety, or that I was really depressed and anxious, they don't see that version of me. And I'm proud of that, because that means I grew and I changed and I evolved as a person. But that also means that they didn't know that version of me. And that version of me existed and it was real. It's a version of me that was in a lot of pain. And I know that pain also exists with other people. And just because I've been able to move on from that and to grow from that doesn't mean that I need to forget that person that I was. I want to be able to help others who are in that position, who are insecure, who are feeling like they're not enough, to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that they can feel confident and worthy and true to themselves in this world that we live in. So I invite you to try this Life Lab exercise. It's called Who Am I Without the Situation? I want you to get a pencil and paper so you can write this down. And I want you to pause and think about the circumstances that have led you to question your worth. Is it a breakup, a job that you lost? Maybe you are not where you thought you'd be in life. Maybe you're starting over. I want you to remember that this is something that's happening to you and it's not who you are. You're going to then split the paper in half and put it into 2 different columns. On the left side, you're going to write down the facts. Maybe you are going to write down that you're single, unemployed, or working part-time. Maybe you moved back home, changed careers. Write down all the facts of your circumstances. And on the right-hand side, list how they're making you feel or how they're making you think. Do you feel like you're a failure, or you're wasting time, or that you're behind, or not feeling chosen, or not enough? How is it making you feel? How is it making you think about yourself? And I want you to look back and see how maybe, just maybe, that the left side is not telling you anything that the right side is. And that we are just thinking those feelings about that. Being single isn't necessarily a bad thing. Having no job isn't necessarily a bad thing, or that it makes you a failure, or that you're worthless. Then I want you to answer some of these sentence starters and fill in the blank. I am someone who ... I value ... I care deeply about ... and some other ones. I tend to show up as... People often feel blank when they're around me. Even in hard seasons, I still ... blank. Take your time with these questions and prompts. Notice that your identity is not based on outcomes. It's based on patterns of being, who you are, how you show up in the world. Are you going to keep getting back up every time you fall down? Or are you going to just stop where you are? How do you want to show up in this world? Do not feel pressured to get it done right away. Take your time, relax, take a break, come back to it. This kind of exercise can be mentally straining because if we're not used to working on ourselves in this way, it can be a bit exhausting. So make sure you get some water and take some deep breaths and remind yourself that you are in a safe place. Now, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode. I am very grateful for your time, and I encourage you to share the podcast if you felt like this was helpful to you. And if you want, you can go grab my free ebook. It's called Fear is Fuel. It's on my website, brave.ju.mp. Or you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at My Wonderless Life. That's @MAIWANDERLUSTLIFE. It stands for the love of travel, so my wonderless life. And lastly, please remember that we're all living life for the first time. So let's be patient, kind, and let's figure it out together. I'm your host, Miley, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.